Slapstick. Slapstick humor is one of the oldest and most straightforward forms of comedy. It relies heavily on physical actions to generate laughs. Imagine a scene where someone steps on a rake, and the handle flies up to hit them in the face. This is classic slapstick. The humor comes from the exaggerated physical actions and the often painful but funny consequences. Slapstick is all about timing and exaggeration. The physical actions are usually over the top, making them seem unrealistic but entertaining. This type of humor doesn't rely on words, so it's universally understood, making it popular across different cultures and age groups. Think about performers like Charlie Chaplin or Buster Keaton. Their silent films are filled with slapstick humor, from falling down stairs to elaborate chase scenes. These actions are choreographed to perfection, with precise timing that turns potential accidents into hilarious moments. Modern examples include TV shows like The Simpsons or America's Funniest Home Videos, where physical mishaps are a source of laughter. Slapstick works because it taps into a basic human reaction. Seeing someone fall or get hit unexpectedly triggers a natural, reflexive laugh. It's a safe way to experience mishaps and accidents because we know the performers aren't really hurt. The exaggerated nature of the actions also adds a layer of absurdity, making the situations funny instead of tragic. Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love. Satire. Satire is a sophisticated form of humor that uses wit to criticize and expose the flaws and foolishness of people, institutions, or society. It's like a comedic magnifying glass, highlighting the ridiculousness of certain behaviors or ideas to make a point. Satire is often used to address serious issues, such as politics, social norms, or cultural practices, but it does so in a way that makes you laugh and think at the same time. The essence of satire is its ability to provoke thought while entertaining. It often employs irony, exaggeration, and parody to make its point. For example, a satirical news show might present a completely ridiculous news story to highlight the absurdity of real-world events. Shows like The Daily Show or Last Week Tonight are renowned for their satirical take on current events. Satire can be biting and sharp, cutting through the noise to reveal truths that might be uncomfortable. This type of humor requires the audience to be somewhat knowledgeable about the topic being satirized. The more you understand the context, the funnier and more impactful the satire becomes. Classic literary examples of satire include Jonathan Swift's A Modest Proposal, where he suggests that the poor might ease their economic troubles by selling their children as food to the rich. Though shocking, this extreme suggestion is meant to criticize the British government's neglect of the Irish people. Satire works best when it balances humor with a clear message. The goal is to entertain while also encouraging the audience to reflect on the issues being presented. It's a powerful tool for social commentary because it can slip past defenses and provoke thought in a way that straightforward criticism might not. Parody. Parody is a form of humor that imitates the style and content of another work, often to poke fun at or criticize the original. It's like a humorous mirror that reflects and distorts the original, highlighting its quirks and flaws in a way that is both entertaining and insightful. Parody can target any form of expression, movies, books, songs, or even public figures. A good parody will mimic the characteristics of the original work while exaggerating certain aspects to make them ridiculous. For example, a parody of a serious action movie might exaggerate the dramatic pauses, intense stares, and over-the-top fight scenes to the point of absurdity. The goal is to make the audience laugh by recognizing the familiar elements and seeing them in a new, humorous light. One of the most famous examples of parody is the work of Weird Al Yankovic, who creates humorous versions of popular songs. By changing the lyrics to be funny or absurd while keeping the original melody, he creates a new work that comments on the original song and its themes. Similarly, movies like Scary Movie parody the horror genre by taking common tropes and turning them into comedic elements. Parody is effective because it requires the audience to be familiar with the original work. The humor comes from the recognition of how the parody twists and exaggerates the original elements. This type of humor often operates on multiple levels. It can be appreciated for its surface-level comedy, but also for its deeper critique of the original work or the genre it represents. In literature, parodies often serve to critique societal norms or literary conventions. For instance, Jane Austen's Northanger Abbey parodies Gothic novels by exaggerating their melodramatic elements, thus commenting on the unrealistic expectations they create. Parody serves as both entertainment and commentary. It provides a way to enjoy and engage with popular culture while also offering a critical perspective. By highlighting the absurdities and inconsistencies in the original, parody helps us see familiar things in a new light, often revealing deeper truths about the subject being parodied. Puns. Puns are a form of humor that relies on wordplay. They exploit the multiple meanings of a word or words that sound alike but have different meanings. Puns are often considered the simplest form of verbal humor, yet they can be incredibly clever and witty. They play on the flexibility and complexity of language, making them a favorite among those who appreciate linguistic creativity. A classic example of a pun is, "Time flies like an arrow, fruit flies like a banana." Here, the word "flies" is used in two different contexts, as a verb in the first clause and as a noun in the second. The humor comes from the unexpected shift in meaning, which surprises and delights the listener. Puns can be as simple as a play on a single word or as complex as a multi-layer joke that requires some thought to unpack. They are often used in jokes, riddles, and headlines because they can convey humor quickly and effectively. For instance, a newspaper headline might read, "Local baker makes dough," playing on the dual meanings of dough as both money and the ingredient for bread. Puns are effective because they engage the brain's language centers in a unique way. They require the listener to recognize the dual meanings and make the connection between them. This moment of realization is what makes puns funny. They are also versatile. They can be used in everyday conversation, literature, advertising, and even in names of businesses. Think of a pet grooming salon called the Groom Room. While some puns are groan-inducing and considered lowbrow, others can be quite sophisticated and clever. The key to a good pun is its ability to surprise and amuse, making the listener appreciate the wordplay and the cleverness behind it. Dark humor. Dark humor, also known as black comedy, is a type of humor that finds the funny side of subjects that are typically serious, taboo, or morbid. This includes topics like death, illness, or disaster. The humor comes from the stark contrast between the gravity of the subject and the lightness of the joke. It often aims to provoke a shock response, followed by laughter. Dark humor works by breaking social taboos and challenging our comfort zones. It forces us to confront uncomfortable realities and, through laughter, find a way to cope with them. For example, making a joke about the inevitability of death can be a way to deal with the fear and anxiety surrounding it. Shows like The Addams Family and South Park often use dark humor to address controversial or sensitive topics. In literature, authors like Kurt Vonnegut and Joseph Heller use dark humor to critique war and human nature. Their works, such as Slaughterhouse-Five and Catch-22, respectively, present grim subjects in a way that is both humorous and thought-provoking. Dark humor can be therapeutic. It allows people to cope with difficult situations by finding a way to laugh at them. This can provide a sense of control and relief in the face of adversity. However, dark humor can also be controversial because it treads on sensitive ground. Not everyone appreciates jokes about serious subjects, and the line between funny and offensive can be thin. The success of dark humor often depends on the context and the audience. In a group that shares a similar perspective or experience, dark humor can strengthen bonds and provide comfort. For instance, healthcare professionals might use dark humor to deal with the stresses of their job. However, in a more general audience, dark humor risks alienating or upsetting those who find the subjects too sensitive. The key to effective dark humor is balance. It should acknowledge the seriousness of the subject while finding a way to present it in a humorous light. This requires a deft touch and a deep understanding of both the topic and the audience. When done well, dark humor can be a powerful tool for social commentary and personal catharsis, providing a way to laugh in the face of life's most challenging moments. Surreal/absurd humor. Surreal or absurd humor is a type of comedy that defies logic and conventional reasoning. It creates humor through bizarre, illogical, and often fantastical situations that are completely detached from reality. This kind of humor plays with the absurdity of existence and the unpredictable nature of life, leading to unexpected and often hilarious outcomes. Surreal humor often involves strange juxtapositions, nonsensical dialogue, and dreamlike scenarios. It's like stepping into a world where the normal rules of logic and reason don't apply. Think of the works of Monty Python or the cartoons of Salvador Dali. In Monty Python sketches, for example, you might find a man having an argument with his own reflection or a giant foot suddenly crushing a character for no apparent reason. The appeal of surreal humor lies in its unpredictability and its ability to surprise. Because it doesn't follow conventional patterns, it keeps the audience on their toes, never knowing what to expect next. This element of surprise is key to its comedic effect. The sheer randomness and absurdity can be incredibly funny because it's so far removed from everyday experiences. Surreal humor can also be a way to explore deeper philosophical questions about the nature of reality and existence. By presenting the world in such an illogical and chaotic way, it can highlight the inherent absurdity of life and the human condition. Shows like Rick and Morty or films by directors like David Lynch use surreal humor to both entertain and provoke thought, blending humor with existential musings. However, surreal humor isn't for everyone. Its lack of structure and reliance on the bizarre can be confusing or off-putting to some. It requires a willingness to let go of logic and embrace the absurd. For those who do enjoy it, surreal humor offers a unique and refreshing break from the ordinary, providing laughs through its sheer unpredictability and creativity. Situational comedy. Situational comedy, or sitcom, is a type of humor that arises from the everyday situations and interactions of a fixed set of characters in a consistent setting, such as a home or workplace. The humor comes from the characters' personalities, relationships, and the predicaments they find themselves in. Sitcoms often rely on a combination of witty dialogue, character-driven jokes, and humorous scenarios. The structure of a sitcom typically involves recurring characters who face different comedic situations in each episode. The setting remains the same, allowing the audience to become familiar with the characters and their dynamics. Shows like Friends, The Office, and Seinfeld are classic examples of situational comedy. In Friends, the humor comes from the interactions and relationships among a group of friends living in New York City. In The Office, the comedy is driven by the quirky personalities of office workers and their mundane yet absurd daily activities. Situational comedy works because it creates a sense of familiarity and attachment to the characters. The repeated setting and consistent cast allow viewers to feel like they are part of the character's world. The humor often derives from the characters' flaws, misunderstandings, and the way they handle various situations. This type of humor can be both relatable and comforting, as it often reflects the everyday experiences and challenges that people face. Sitcoms also use running gags and catchphrases to build a comedic rhythm. Characters might have certain traits or behaviors that are consistently funny, creating a sense of anticipation and payoff for the audience. For example, in Seinfeld, the character George Costanza's neurotic behavior and Jerry Seinfeld's observational humor provide recurring sources of comedy. The success of a sitcom depends on strong character development and clever writing. The characters need to be well-defined and relatable, and the dialogue must be sharp and engaging. The humor in situational comedy is often a mix of witty banter, physical comedy, and situational irony, making it a versatile and enduring form of humor. Self-deprecating humor. Self-deprecating humor is a type of comedy where individuals make fun of themselves, highlighting their own flaws, mistakes, or shortcomings. This type of humor is both endearing and relatable because it shows a level of humility and self-awareness. By laughing at themselves, people can diffuse tension, build rapport, and make others feel more comfortable. The essence of self-deprecating humor is vulnerability. It allows the person to acknowledge their imperfections in a humorous way, which can make them more likable and relatable. For example, a comedian might joke about their own awkwardness in social situations or their tendency to procrastinate. This type of humor can make the audience feel a connection with the performer, as they see their own flaws reflected in the jokes. Self-deprecating humor is effective because it breaks down barriers. When someone makes fun of themselves, it signals that they don't take themselves too seriously and are open to criticism. This can create a more relaxed and inclusive atmosphere, whether in a social setting or a comedy performance. It's a way of saying, "I'm just like you, with my own set of quirks and insecurities." This type of humor can also be a powerful coping mechanism. By making light of their own issues, individuals can take control of their narrative and reduce the impact of negative experiences. It allows them to face their challenges with a sense of humor, which can be both empowering and therapeutic. For instance, someone dealing with a difficult situation might use self-deprecating humor to express their frustrations in a lighthearted way, helping to alleviate stress and anxiety. However, self-deprecating humor needs to be balanced. If taken too far, it can come across as self-pitying or undermine the person's confidence. It's important to use this humor in a way that acknowledges flaws without dwelling on them excessively. When done right, self-deprecating humor highlights the universal human experience of imperfection, making it a powerful tool for connection and camaraderie. Observational humor. Observational humor is a type of comedy that focuses on the everyday, mundane aspects of life. It involves noticing and commenting on familiar situations, behaviors, and experiences that people often overlook. The humor comes from the comedian's ability to articulate these observations in a way that is both insightful and funny. The strength of observational humor lies in its relatability. Comedians who excel in this genre have a keen eye for detail and a knack for pointing out the absurdities in everyday life. They take common experiences and highlight the humor in them, making the audience see the ordinary in an extraordinary light. For example, Jerry Seinfeld, a master of observational humor, often jokes about the trivialities of modern life, such as the quirks of airline travel or the peculiarities of social etiquette. Observational humor works by finding the universal truths in shared experiences. The audience laughs because they recognize the situations being described and can relate to them on a personal level. This type of humor creates a sense of shared understanding and connection, as the comedian articulates thoughts and feelings that many people have but might not have expressed. A key element of observational humor is its focus on the small, everyday moments that make up our lives. These moments might seem insignificant on their own, but when highlighted in a comedic way, they reveal a lot about human nature and society. For instance, a comedian might joke about the frustration of trying to open a stubborn jar or the awkwardness of saying goodbye to someone and then walking in the same direction. Observational humor often relies on a conversational style, making it feel like a friendly chat rather than a formal performance. This approach makes the humor accessible and engaging, drawing the audience in with its down-to-earth and relatable content. The best observational comedians have a talent for taking the ordinary and making it extraordinary, turning the minutiae of daily life into a source of laughter and insight. Irony. Irony is a sophisticated form of humor that involves saying one thing but meaning another, often the opposite. It relies on the contrast between what is said and what is actually meant or understood. Irony can be verbal, situational, or dramatic, and it often highlights the discrepancy between appearance and reality. Verbal irony occurs when someone says something but means something different, often opposite. For example, if it's pouring rain outside and someone says, "What a beautiful day," the humor comes from the ironic contrast between the statement and the reality. This type of irony is often used to express sarcasm or to make a critical point in a humorous way. Situational irony involves a discrepancy between what is expected to happen and what actually happens. A classic example is a fire station burning down. The irony lies in the unexpected outcome, which is both surprising and amusing. Situational irony often highlights the unpredictability of life and the futility of certain expectations. For instance, in Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, the audience knows that Juliet is not really dead, but Romeo does not. His actions based on this misunderstanding lead to a tragic yet dramatically ironic outcome. The humor in dramatic irony often comes from the audience's awareness of the contrast between the character's perception and reality. Irony is a powerful tool because it engages the audience on multiple levels. It requires them to recognize the gap between what is said and what is meant, or between expectation and reality. This cognitive engagement makes irony a particularly clever and enjoyable form of humor. It often leaves the audience with a sense of satisfaction when they get the ironic twist. Irony can also be used to make pointed social or political commentary. By highlighting the contradictions and absurdities in certain situations, irony can criticize societal norms, behaviors, or institutions in a humorous way. This makes it a favorite device in satire, where the aim is to provoke thought and reflection through humor. Satire. Satire is a form of humor that uses irony, exaggeration, and ridicule to criticize and expose the shortcomings of individuals, societies, institutions, or politics. The goal of satire is not just to entertain, but also to provoke thought and bring about change by highlighting the absurdities and hypocrisies in the subject being targeted. Satire can be found in various forms, including literature, television, film, and theater. Classic examples include Jonathan Swift's A Modest Proposal, which uses irony and exaggeration to criticize British policy towards the Irish, and George Orwell's Animal Farm, which satirizes the corruption of socialist ideals in the Soviet Union. In modern media, shows like The Daily Show and Last Week Tonight with John Oliver use satire to comment on current events and politics. They blend humor with critical analysis, making serious points through comedic means. This approach makes the criticism more palatable and engaging for the audience. The effectiveness of satire lies in its ability to entertain while simultaneously delivering a critical message. By making the audience laugh, satire lowers their defenses and makes them more receptive to the underlying critique. The humor provides a cushion for the often harsh realities being exposed, making the truth more bearable and thought-provoking. Slapstick. Slapstick is a form of physical comedy that involves exaggerated, often violent actions to elicit laughter. It relies on visual gags, pratfalls, and physical antics rather than verbal wit. Slapstick humor is straightforward and universal, as it transcends language and cultural barriers. Classic examples of slapstick comedy include the works of Charlie Chaplin, Buster Keaton, and the Marx Brothers. These performers used physicality, timing, and visual tricks to create humor that was both simple and sophisticated. Modern examples include movies like Home Alone and TV shows like Tom and Jerry. The appeal of slapstick lies in its immediacy and visual nature. The humor is direct and often involves exaggerated reactions to physical mishaps. For example, someone slipping on a banana peel or getting hit with a pie in the face is a classic slapstick gag. The exaggerated nature of these actions makes them funny, as they push the boundaries of reality in a humorous way. Slapstick can be incredibly effective because it taps into a primal, almost childlike sense of humor. The physicality and visual nature of slapstick make it accessible to a wide audience, including children. It's a form of humor that doesn't require complex language or cultural references, making it universally understandable. However, slapstick must be carefully balanced to avoid becoming overly violent or mean-spirited. The goal is to create a sense of fun and playfulness, not to cause real harm or discomfort. When done correctly, slapstick can be a joyous and infectious form of humor that brings laughter through its sheer physicality and absurdity.